We all carry baggage. You know we do. I mean, we tote it around in our handy dandy bag of, well, baggage. And we pass it out to people we meet. And we pass it out to people that we love. And some of us kind of carry it behind us, kind of like rolling it around in one of those fancy rolling suitcases, stored, safe for keeping and pulling it up to us alongside of us when we think it's needed. And for some of us, we carry it around and it's physical, like the old clothes cluttering our closets. And for some of us, it's emotional, like the grudges and the regrets that weigh us down. Yeah, that bag of baggage that pushes all that weight down on your shoulders, kind of holding you down and holding you back. But holding on to these things, whether they are tangible or intangible, can hinder our personal growth and actually prevent us from leading a better life, hinder us from feeling better, from being happy. It can seriously do some damage. And for so many of us, we think in some form or fashion that it's protecting us from being hurt again, protecting us from feeling like a failure, protecting us from the pain that we've already felt. And some of us even begin to act like that pain is normal. We're so used to toting around that baggage that it just becomes normal. We don't know what it would feel like outside of that. So, welcome to Knockout Thoughts of the Day, where I pose a question or simply a thought to invoke deeper thought into you and who you truly are. Now, my question of the night is, what are you holding on to? What are you dragging behind you? What are you carrying upon your shoulders? What do you have stored deep within you that you need to let go of? I woke from a dream this morning, and it was one of those dreams that it was a bit hard to shake. The kind that kind of keeps you in a daze all day long. Well, it's, almost time for bed again, and I've been in that daze all day long. So I want to tell you about this dream because it really had me pondering over the idea of what am I holding on to, right? And this dream actually helped me to realize what I could not see. So I'll try to keep this short because if I covered every little detail of this dream, we would definitely be here for a while. So the scene, if you can picture this, was kind of like Wild Wild West meets the 90s. Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but that's the scene. There were like overturned cars everywhere. Some were on fire, all over this yard or open field type area. And there were also wagons, like old school wagons flipped over, and there were horses just running around. And I was in the midst of this battle in this open field with all of this chaos around. And there was also a cabin to the left of me. Now, the funny thing is, it was kind of like this dynamic between masculine and feminine. It was a team of men who I was on their team, but I was a woman, which I found very strange. And then there was a team of women, and the women were coming from out of this wooded area through the fields and onto the land to fight these men. And I definitely found all of this kind of strange. What was even stranger is that every single weapon I picked up, it was so tiny. Like so very tiny. Like this little bow and I would say arrow, but I picked up a bow and a twig. Like, what is that twig gonna do? And I'm telling you, it was just extremely tiny. And I tried to use it, right? And of course, I could see it fling towards the women, and it just fell flat to the ground right in front of them, and I could hear the laughter. And these women were using trees, like really thick tree branches, to catapult towards the men. Now, most of the men were hiding. Like I had a sense that there were a lot of men around, but they were hiding. Whether it be like they were hiding and kind of using their weapons, whatever they had, or just, very cowardice is the feeling that I got, that they were hiding and they were firing off towards these women coming up, right? Now, there was this one man that was beside me. I could see his boots and his legs as I was down in a car. This car was kind of at a tilt and it had no front wheels. And as this man fired, I kind of made a run towards the cabin. And inside the cabin, I told my daughter to go hide under the bed and to not come out until I came for her, right? And so, long story short, I locked this room that had this huge doorknob. I mean, huge. And I grabbed another tiny weapon in that room as these two women came in through another door. And I tried to fire this weapon at them. Yeah, but it didn't work. And I remember trying like 3 more times to load it. Um, the ammo was toy ammo. You know, those old pop shots in the toy section? Yeah. That's what I was using for the ammo in this weapon. And it definitely didn't work for sure. So the two women, to me, they kind of appeared to be like alter egos of mine, or like two of me's, I don't know really how to explain that, but I could see them in very fine detail. Like I could describe them to a T. I probably could sit down and actually draw these two women. And I could see when I like started to analyze this dream and like pull forward the message that it held for me, that they were me in some sort of sense. See, to me, I had been holding on to something and I was locking my heart. Now, how did I figure that out? Well, the room that I had locked, with the huge doorknob, it actually had green carpet. And I'm here to tell you that all things in a dream mean something, down to the colors, down to the small finite details. And green to me signifies the heart space. Well, I was overdoing the locking mechanism on my heart. These other parts of me were showing up and invading this land, coming into this dark cabin that had my daughter, who represents my inner child and has in many dreams. And they were trying to help me, I figured that I was held captive by the shadows of the past, and I hadn't even realized it. And see, there were so many details in this dream about not being able to see something. I mean, the car that I had started out in had broken glass, and I couldn't see forward as I tried to look out. The one with the 2 missing wheels, symbolizing not moving anywhere, not going anywhere, kind of being in that stagnant energy. And in the room where I had locked the huge doorknob, the overdone, lock, in that room there was frosted glass windows I couldn't see out of. And the cabin itself was dark. I couldn't see that I was being held captive, and the feminine was trying to move in to save me. So to give me the message that I'm really overdoing the locking up of my heart, I mean, that knob was huge, like definitely overdone. And I feel like I was doing this to protect that little inner me that, that doesn't want to be hurt anymore. 6.5 years ago, I got a divorce on grounds of physical cruelty. And I mean, it was a nightmare. And I've been single ever since. I went from open to love and the adventure of it to having zero desire for a relationship. And I mean, at all. Now that I'm thinking about it, that car that was in my dream that I started out in, it was a old boyfriend's car that was my first actual relationship. And It's actually the relationship where abuse started. Now, during that relationship, it wasn't physical abuse, but it did take a toll on me mentally and emotionally. And ever since, I've had some pretty traumatic experiences with relationships. And although, on so many levels, I've healed physically and emotionally from all of that, I can see now that I haven't healed mentally. It's like I hold on to the shadows of the past, and I have it locked in my mind to not fall victim to any of that nonsense again. And this little girl within me, she's been through enough. No wonder she was in that cabin, dark, secluded, and private. And by holding on to the actual experiences of the past, I have put an enormous lock on my heart. Dreams are fascinating, aren't they? I never would have even thought about this if it hadn't have been for that dream. So again, I ask, what is it that you're holding on to? And what are some of the things that we tend to hold on to anyways? Well, for starters, grudges and resentment. Holding on to grudges and resentment can be incredibly toxic. It'll like bleed that toxicity through your body. These negative emotions and that toxicity eat away at our well-being, and it can damage current and future relationships. I kind of feel like the grudges we hold on to turns into resentment. Think about it. Like someone did you dirty, right? I mean, they did you flat out wrong. So you hold this grudge against that person, and you carried that baggage around, right? And then years down the road, you find yourself resenting that person for the damage that they caused, but also resenting the moments you missed with other people because of that particular grudge. So maybe you start resenting yourself and the choices that you made. What does one do to let go of grudges? First, I would say go back to the experience and see where you are now. See it from where you are now. What is your perspective now? Is it any different than when it took place? I mean, it could be something to where maybe you both were young and that person didn't know any better. Maybe you can see that from where you are today. Maybe you can see that, that they really did make an absolute mistake and that you wasn't ready to forgive and let it go. To let go, try practicing forgiveness. Understand that, forgiveness, it's not about condoning someone's actions, but it's more so about freeing yourself from, that emotional burden that turns into resentment. Holding on to a grudge is kind of like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, but it really is just harming you. So are you ready to pour that bottle of poison out and let go of the grudge and the resentments altogether? What about past mistakes? I mean, we all make mistakes. It's a part of being human. However, some of us have such a hard time forgiving ourselves for these mistakes. We have these unbelievably high expectations of ourselves and are so extremely hard on ourselves when we don't meet that bar. You are human. We are human. We will make mistakes. After all, it's how we learn. So to let go of past mistakes, I think it's crucial to acknowledge them, to see what you actually learned from them, and then to release them. Remember that making mistakes is a part of the learning process, and it is how we grow. So, in case no one has ever told you this, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay. My youngest daughter, she will come into the room with, this smile on her face, and she'll just announce, "Well, Mama, I made a mistake." but I'm learning and growing. And I'll say, well, as long as you're learning from it, And she'll go on to say whatever it is and that she cleaned it up and so forth. She knows it's a part of life. So again, it's okay. We all do it. We all make mistakes. Totally fine. What about holding on to unhealthy relationships? Sometimes we hold on to relationships that are, no longer healthy or fulfilling. These relationships can drain our energy and, prevent us from forming new and positive connections. It keeps us stuck. Letting go of these relationships can be so hard, but it's often necessary, not only for your happiness, but for your personal growth. And this one right here, how many of you are in a really bad relationship? Or maybe you stuck in there far too long. You hung in there far too long. And I mean, absolute no judgment for me. As you've heard, I've had my fair share of them for sure. I want to say, know that you're worthy of happiness. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. Know that you're worthy of happiness. Don't normalize the toxicity. You deserve to be happy. So seek support from friends or family or even myself to help, navigate this process. Usually we stay in these unhealthy relationships because there's a trauma bond. I've been there before. And or both, we have these shadow roots that need to be healed. Things like low self-worth or not knowing that you deserve better, and also limited beliefs. So yeah, reach out to me at journeyintoit@gmail.com and ask about shadow work sessions. Another thing that we hold on to is those limited beliefs, and we usually let those beliefs come to the surface with negative self-talk. We often hold on to self-doubt and negative self-talk, and that can be so limiting and self-sabotaging. Those I can't, or I'll never, or I deserve this or that, and that's just the way it is. Yeah. They're all kind of limited beliefs that can be worked through and switch to the I cans and the I wills and I ams and I deserve better. There is a new way. There's a new way of doing things. There's a new way of feeling. There's a new way of being. There's a new way of creating. So start by recognizing when you're actually engaging in negative self-talk. Challenge those thoughts. I mean, challenge those thoughts. And start replacing them with positive affirmations. I know it sounds super silly. I mean, when I heard this for the first time a long time ago, I was like, now why in the world am I going to stand in the mirror and say, things like, I am beautiful, I am safe, I am secure, things like that. But I'm telling you, it works. It was not long after I started using positive affirmations for myself that I was able to almost reprogram, my mind into a positive way of thinking. I feel like self-compassion and self-love are essential for letting go of these, self-sabotaging behaviors. Sometimes other things we hold on to are physical, like physical clutter. Physical clutter can also be a source of stress. Yeah, for sure. And it can be a huge distraction. By decluttering your physical space, you can actually create a more peaceful way of being. You can have this peaceful environment, which actually in turn brings in this peace within, I promise you. And as a reminder too, items carry and hold energy as well. So think about that. And also think about what are the reasons you're holding on to these things. Consider keeping maybe only the things that spark joy for you, only keeping the things that really, really bring you some sort of happiness. And then get rid of the other stuff, donate it, or discard items that, no longer serves a purpose in your life. There's no point in holding on to that, all of that stuff, okay? Um, Take small steps too. Um, Sometimes there can be a fear of letting go of things, so it's necessary to take small steps. Don't do like me, or you can do like me and go through your whole closet and throw out every piece of clothing that you hadn't worn in the last 3 months. Yeah, I did that. And let me just say, I do not recommend. I mean, okay, it did feel great in the moment as I was doing that, getting rid of things like, I know I got rid of my wedding dress, just items like that. But yeah, things that kind of held a negative experience with it. But I think I went a little bit too extreme. So go at the appropriate pace and maybe even do a little ritual with it. Like if it's an item that, every time you look at it, you kind of get this feeling in the pit of your stomach, and then the tears begin to swell to the surface, in your eyes. Maybe have like a bonfire releasing night. Write down how you are letting this item go and manifest how you want to feel afterwards. And then let it burn, baby. Of course, look at any restrictions in your city and be safe. All right. Also, let's take a look again at those expectations, because we not only hold expectations for ourselves, but we do this to others as well. And well, I learned a long time ago that you and me are one, but yet you are going to do what it is that you want, and you have that right. You have that free will. Therefore, I cannot control or navigate your life for you, and my expectations of you are not your expectations of you. Now, of course, have the boundaries, set the bar, but just understand that others cannot control. You can say, no, thank you. I don't want to experience this anymore because you're choosing to do this or that, and you can move on, but you cannot control anyone. So, unrealistic expectations. Holding on to unrealistic expectations can lead to constant disappointments. So, maybe letting go of these, you reevaluate your expectations and set more realistic goals. And this is a big one. Understand that perfection is unattainable. Why do we have the expectation that the other person is going to be perfect? It's okay to fall short sometimes. And as much as we want to think that another is perfect or think that we can be perfect, we are not. They are not. Nobody is. And another thing you might be holding on to is regret. Regret can be paralyzing. It can prevent us from moving forward. Regrets can also often turn into fear. Yep, fear. It's paralyzing, isn't it? But let's remember that fear is just a stepping stone, a chance to learn and to challenge ourselves. And maybe regret is too. So what you didn't take that opportunity to do when it was presented to you, don't let that stop you the next time that it comes around. To let go of regret, reflect on the lessons learned from those experiences. Use them as stepping stones for personal growth and as guides for better decision making in your future. And now, the last thing I want to touch on is the ego. Dun dun dun. Sometimes we hold on to our egos, which can lead to like stubbornness and, resistant to change. Stabilizing ego involves practicing humility and having an open mind and the willingness to learn from others. Sometimes we just identify too much with the ego, who we were taught to be or made up in our head that we are. And we wind up missing out on the real us. Oh, ego. You gotta learn to love it. I know people say things like it's just ego, as though ego were something we could just throw away, dispense of at will. But I say, learn to love it. Have a healthy ego, you know? Now, Carl Jung, he was a Swiss psychologist, said that the ego is the commander in chief. The ego is the thing that is the center of consciousness. And if we aren't consciously creating or learning or understanding and growing, well, that can make for an unhealthy ego. So I say, know yourself and then know yourself more. Letting go of the ego, as others would say, is simply letting go of who you thought you were and becoming super conscious on who you truly are. Letting go of all that baggage can be such a transformative process. It's going to require a lot from you. Self-awareness, for one, self-compassion, giving yourself grace when needed, and having the willingness to release what no longer serves you. It's an absolute journey. It's your journey of self-discovery. And it can open this field within you of inner freedom and peace and happiness that you really are deserving of. So again, I ask, what are you holding on to? And what are you ready to let go of? Remember, it's okay to seek help from friends and family or professionals when navigating through this. Ask for support. You're not alone. Even if you're asking support from your angels or guides, they are there for it. Just call upon them. This asking for help when it's needed. I think that's another thing that we might hold on to. This basis of, I can do it myself. Maybe that has a lot to do with ego, huh? So remember, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to ask for help. Shed the weight of this past. Shed the weight of all those experiences and step into a brighter, happier future. Remember, you are worthy and deserving of happiness. I need you to know that. And it will feel fan-freaking-tastic when you drop all of that baggage. So until next time, search deep within.